They trained you to be agreeable, to be predictable, to mistake politeness for strength and noise for authority. From childhood, you were rewarded for being manageable, not formidable. Forget all of it. Power never begs, never explains, never rushes. Power observes. It studies patterns. It waits until everyone else reveals their hand. Machiavelli understood what most people are too comfortable to admit. The world is not ruled by virtue, but by perception and leverage. Outcomes don't care about intentions, they obey strategy. The warrior mindset begins the moment you accept a brutal truth. You are alone with your potential. No one is coming to rescue you, validate you, or hand you confidence. And the instant you stop needing rescue, you terrify the system built on your dependence. Real confidence is not loud or emotional. It is quiet, controlled, and unreadable. It's knowing you could dominate the situation and choosing patience instead. Weak men react, powerful men decide. Weak men chase attention. Powerful men let their absence speak. From this point forward, you stop telegraphing your thoughts, stop volunteering your plans, stop explaining yourself to people who haven't earned context. This is not motivation. This is insulation. Insulation against doubt, manipulation, and fear. You are becoming psychologically armored, hard to read, harder to move, impossible to control. If you feel that shift happening, mark the moment. Comment, "I move in silence now." Saying it publicly is a commitment, and commitment separates spectators from strategists. Number 1, the law of perception. Understand this before anything else. People do not respond to who you are. They respond to who they think you are. That single distinction separates the controllable from the sovereign. Machiavelli didn't preach honesty as a virtue. He warned that visibility without control is weakness. If people can predict you, they can manipulate you. If they can label you, they can limit you. So the warrior learns to master perception before action. You don't reveal your intentions. You let others project theirs onto you. Silence is not emptiness. It's a mirror, and most people expose themselves the moment you stop filling the space for them. Modern psychology confirms what power has always known. Uncertainty creates dominance. When your reactions are restrained, when your emotions remain unspoken, when your plans stay private, people lean in. They monitor you, they guess. And in that guessing, they give you leverage. This is why the calmest person in the room controls the direction of everything. Emotional chaos belongs to those without options. The warrior always has options. You were taught to be transparent, expressive, authentic at all times. That teaching made you easy to read and easy to move. From now on, authenticity becomes selective. Trust becomes earned. Access becomes permission-based. You don't lie unnecessarily, but you don't reveal the truth to people who haven't proven loyalty or utility. You don't owe clarity to everyone. Mystery is not deceit. Mystery is protection. Watch how quickly dynamics shift when you stop explaining yourself, when you stop rushing to respond, when you allow pauses to breathe. People start adjusting their tone, their posture changes, their respect recalibrates, because confidence without explanation signals status, and status rewrites rules without ever mentioning them. This is where masculine stoicism sharpens into psychological power. You feel everything, but you display nothing unless it serves you. Anger becomes fuel, not leakage. Fear becomes data, not paralysis. Attachment becomes choice, not dependency. Nothing about this is cruelty. It is control. Control over your inner world first, then the outer world follows. If this clicks for you, anchor it now. Comment, "My calm creates control." Let that phrase burn into your identity, because repetition builds mental architecture. At Psygrythum, we don't build motivation, we build operating systems. And this system is designed for a world that rewards those who see reality clearly. Understand this. The man who controls perception never needs to raise his voice. He already owns the frame. You don't need to intimidate, you don't need to posture, you need to be unreadable. That is the first layer of becoming untouchable. And if you're still listening, it means part of you recognizes this truth. Comment, "I am unreadable," if you're ready to step into it. This is only the beginning. Number 2. Emotional discipline is domination. Here is where most men fail, not in strength, not in intelligence, but in emotional leakage. They bleed their inner world into the open and wonder why they're never taken seriously. Emotion is not weakness by itself. Uncontrolled emotion is. Machiavelli understood that whoever controls their inner state controls the tempo of every interaction. If your mood can be influenced, you can be steered. If your reactions are predictable, you can be played. The warrior mindset demands something colder and far rarer: emotional sovereignty. You don't suppress emotions like a coward pretending they don't exist. You observe them like a strategist gathering intelligence. Anger tells you where boundaries were crossed. Fear identifies risk. Desire reveals leverage. But the warrior does not act the moment emotion appears. He delays. He lets the feeling settle, because delay creates dominance. The man who pauses owns the moment. The man who reacts hands it away. Look closely at social dynamics and you'll see the pattern everywhere. The person who gets emotional first loses negotiating power. The one who explains themselves loses status. The one who needs to be understood exposes need, and need is the currency manipulators feed on. From now on, your emotions stay internal until expression serves a purpose. You feel deeply, but you decide selectively. This is not about becoming cold-hearted, it's about becoming unshakable. When chaos hits, you remain still. When provoked, you respond with restraint. When challenged, you don't rise, you anchor. And anchoring unnerves people, because when they push and get nothing back, they question their position. They start second-guessing, they lose frame control. Dark psychology isn't about harming others. It's about understanding how power moves through human behavior. And one rule stands above all: the less reactive man defines reality. Stoicism sharpens this rule into law. You don't argue emotionally. You don't defend impulsively. You don't chase closure. You let silence apply pressure. You let time do the work. And you watch how quickly others reveal insecurity while you remain stable. Think about it. Have you ever noticed how people over-explain when they feel beneath you? How they talk faster, justify more, seek validation subconsciously? That's not confidence, that's imbalance. And balance is power. The warrior protects balance at all costs. From this moment forward, you stop giving emotional discounts. You stop rewarding disrespect with engagement. You stop burning energy, proving yourself to people who haven't earned an audience. Your attention becomes scarce. Your reactions become deliberate. Your presence becomes weighted. People feel it before they understand it. If this lesson is landing, mark it. Comment: I choose response over reaction. Not for me, for your own conditioning. The mind obeys what it repeats. Now understand this next layer carefully. Emotional discipline doesn't make you passive. It makes you lethal in timing. When you finally speak, it matters. When you finally move, it shifts outcomes. When you withdraw, it creates absence, and absence forces recalibration. Men without discipline explode early and burn out. Warriors wait, then strike decisively. This is why calm men are feared and respected. There is no rush in them, no desperation, no emotional noise. They don't need to dominate rooms because rooms orient to them naturally. Their stillness sets the tone. Their silence invites projection. Their restraint signals options, and options are everything. Repeat this internally until it becomes instinct. You are never in a hurry to prove anything. You are never rushed into a decision. You are never pulled into emotional chaos you didn't create. This mindset alone separates leaders from liabilities. If you feel yourself stepping into this state, pause the video for 2 seconds and comment: "My emotions serve me." Lock it in. At SIG Rhythm, we don't teach confidence as a feeling. We teach it as a structure, and emotional discipline is one of the load-bearing pillars. Without it, everything collapses under pressure. With it, pressure sharpens you. Remember this above all else. The world tests you constantly, not to see how loud you are, but to see how stable. Stability is authority. Authority is influence. Influence is power. You are not here to vent. You are here to command yourself first. And once you do, everything else follows. Number 3. Strategic detachment. Attachment is the most invisible leash in modern society. People don't lose power because they lack talent or discipline. They lose it because they need validation, they need comfort, they need certainty. Machiavelli warned that dependence makes a man governable, and dark psychology confirms it. Whoever needs the least holds the most leverage. The warrior mindset is built on strategic detachment, not cold indifference, but freedom from psychological hooks. Detachment does not mean you care about nothing. It means you choose what deserves your energy. It means your self-worth does not fluctuate with praise, rejection, text messages, or approval. You don't let external stimuli dictate your internal state. This is where real confidence forms, not in affirmation, but in self-sufficiency. The less you need outcomes to validate you, the more power you have over them. Observe how easily most people are controlled. A compliment lifts them, a slight destabilizes them. Silence triggers insecurity. Attention becomes currency, and they spend themselves chasing it. The warrior steps out of this economy entirely. You don't bargain emotionally. You don't plead energetically. You don't cling. And because you don't cling, you are respected or feared. Sometimes both. Strategic detachment sharpens your presence. When you enter a room without seeking anything, the room senses it. When you engage without expectation, people unconsciously adjust. They begin to qualify themselves to you. This is not arrogance. This is psychological gravity. Desperation repels. Detachment attracts. Always. Stoic masculinity isn't about being unfeeling. It's about being unmovable. You form bonds slowly. You trust selectively. You invest where there's alignment, not emotional compulsion. And when something or someone violates your standards, you don't explode. You withdraw access. Access is privilege. Removing it is power. Silence, when backed by self-control, becomes consequence. Understand this. Walking away is not quitting when you're not attached to winning validation. Walking away is dominance. It says, I don't need this to be whole. That mindset terrifies a world built on neediness. Most people stay trapped in situations because they fear loss. The warrior understands that clinging is already a loss. Modern psychology calls this non-neediness. Ancient power called it sovereignty. This is why Machiavellian strategy emphasizes independence of mind. You don't let loyalty blind you. You don't let emotions override perception. You don't confuse familiarity with allegiance. You observe patterns over promises. Behavior is truth. Words are smoke. As you detach, something strange happens. Clarity increases. You see people as they are, not as you wish them to be. You stop projecting. You stop rationalizing disrespect. You stop investing in illusions. Detachment clears the fog, and clarity is lethal to manipulation. If you feel this shift, this quiet reclaiming of your center, anchor it. Comment, I am unattached, not unfeeling. Say it publicly so your mind registers the identity upgrade. Now listen carefully. Detachment does not mean isolation. The warrior still connects, builds, leads, but he does so from choice, not compulsion. He can enjoy presence without fearing loss. He can commit without surrendering himself. That balance, connection without dependence, is rare, and rarity commands value. Watch how dynamics flip when you stop chasing closure and start offering standards. When you stop explaining why you deserve respect and simply withdraw when it's absent. People either rise or they reveal themselves. Both outcomes are wins. Dark psychology teaches that emotional withdrawal triggers self-reflection in others. If you were never needy to begin with. Silence only has power when it's backed by stability. That's why tantrums are ignored and calm absence is felt. One reeks of weakness, the other signals self-command. Your energy becomes quieter here, slower, heavier. You speak less, but with intent. You move less, but decisively. You're not rushed to respond to every message, every provocation, every opportunity. Scarcity increases your perceived value, but more importantly, it preserves your actual energy. Power leaks through overextension. From now on, you don't try to be indispensable, you become independent. Ironically, that's exactly what makes you indispensable, because people trust those who aren't trying to extract something from them. If this is registering, comment, "I choose independence over approval." Let that phrase rewire your instincts. At Psych-Rhythm, this is where the mindset starts to feel different. Heavier, colder, clearer. You're no longer reacting to the world. You're standing apart from it, analyzing, choosing, positioning. You are no longer inside the game emotionally. You're above it strategically. And here's the final truth of this section. Attachment clouds judgment. Detachment sharpens it. A man who sees clearly doesn't need aggression. Reality bends quietly around him. This is not detachment from life. This is detachment from control by others. And once that leash is gone, very few things can touch you. If you're still here, you're not consuming content. You're building a different operating system. Say it one more time in the comments. I am free from need. Number 4. The art of cold decision. Power is decided in moments most people never notice, not in explosions, not in speeches, in silence, in hesitation, in restraint. The average man allows emotion, memory, and fear to vote on his decisions. The warrior does not. He removes the noise and acts from principle, not impulse. Machiavelli was ruthless about this. Sentiment clouds judgment, and cloudy judgment destroys power. If you want to be untouchable, your decisions must be cold. Not cruel, not reckless, precise. Most people don't suffer because they make bad decisions. They suffer because they make emotional ones. They decide while angry. They commit while insecure. They speak while afraid of losing face. Every one of these moments transfers power away from them. The warrior understands that urgency is often manufactured, pressure is often artificial, deadlines are tools, and the man who rushes is usually being guided by someone else's agenda. Cold decision-making begins with distance, psychological distance from the outcome, emotional distance from approval, temporal distance from the trigger. You slow the moment down internally, even if the world is rushing externally. While others panic, posture, and perform, you calculate. What does this action cost me long-term? What leverage does this give or take? Who benefits if I move now? Who benefits if I wait? Waiting is not hesitation when it is intentional. Waiting is pressure. Time favors the person who can tolerate uncertainty. Most people break under silence. They rush to resolve discomfort. The warrior lets discomfort sit. He understands that clarity often appears only after impatience burns out around him. This is why calm men inherit chaotic situations. They're the only ones not blinded by urgency. Dark psychology teaches that people reveal their true priorities when forced to wait. The man who pressures you to decide immediately often fears what you'll see if given time. Don't overlook that. The warrior uses time as a filter. Truth surfaces, masks slip, and bad deals expose themselves. Cold decision-making also means accepting loss without emotional collapse. Machiavelli warned that fear of loss makes rulers reckless. Modern psychology agrees. Loss aversion distorts risk assessment. The warrior accepts in advance that some things will be sacrificed. Comfort, popularity, immediate gratification. In return, he gains autonomy, clarity, longevity. This is where masculine stoicism matures. You no longer need every decision to feel good. You need it to be right. Right in alignment with your long-term positioning. Right in relation to your values, not your mood. You stop asking, how do I feel about this? And start asking, where does this place me 6 moves from now? Notice how few men think that far ahead. They live in reactions. They solve today by sabotaging tomorrow. The warrior solves tomorrow even if it irritates today. That's why his life looks slower at first and unstoppable later. Your language changes here. Fewer promises, fewer explanations. You don't telegraph decisions while still weighing them. You don't seek consensus. You gather information silently, test quietly, move cleanly. Once a decision is made, there is no emotional residue, No regret spiral, no rumination. You accept consequence as the price of autonomy. This is critical. Indecision is not neutrality. Indecision is self-betrayal. But rushed decision is submission. Cold decision lives between them, calm, measured, relentless. Look at history. The men who lasted were never the most emotional or impulsive. They were the ones who stayed psychologically distant from their own ego. Ego wants to be seen as right. Power wants to be effective. The warrior sacrifices the illusion of being right in exchange for control of outcomes. Here's a hard truth. Sometimes the correct move feels wrong emotionally. It feels lonely. It feels unfair. It feels unsatisfying in the moment. But effectiveness rarely feels heroic at the time. It feels quiet, ordinary, uncelebrated, until time proves it correct. You don't announce cold decisions, you don't dramatize them, you don't defend them to people who were never responsible for the outcome. You move and let results justify you. Results are the only language reality respects. As this mindset locks in, your stress reduces. Not because life gets easier, but because fewer things reach your core. You stop over-identifying with outcomes. You stop defining yourself by wins and losses. You become process-oriented, position-focused. That psychological shift alone makes you harder to manipulate, harder to provoke, harder to derail. Understand this. When you decide coldly, you become predictable only to yourself. To others, you appear calm, steady, and mysterious. They cannot rush you. They cannot corner you emotionally. They cannot bait reactions. Because you are not playing their game, you're playing positioning. This is what it means to operate from power instead of anxiety. A man who decides cold does not need constant reassurance. He does not need applause. He does not need immediate reward. He needs alignment. And alignment compounds quietly until one day people wonder how you became so untouchable without ever raising your voice. This is not about becoming ruthless. This is about becoming precise. Number 5. The discipline of self-command. Before you ever control outcomes, environments, or people, you must master the one territory most men abandon: yourself. Not your image, not your intentions, your behavior. Power collapses when words and actions misalign. Discipline is not intensity, it's consistency without emotion. Machiavelli understood that unreliable men are weak men, even if they are loud, gifted, or feared. The warrior mindset demands self-command so absolute that mood no longer dictates movement. Most men live in cycles. Motivation spikes, discipline fades, promise, delay, regret, repeat. That cycle makes them predictable, and predictability is exploitable. The warrior exits the cycle by removing emotion from execution. He does what must be done regardless of how it feels, not because he enjoys suffering, but because he refuses to negotiate with weakness. Self-command means you don't wait to feel ready. You act when it's time. You don't debate habits daily. You lock them in. Decision fatigue is a luxury for undisciplined minds. The warrior automates discipline. Training happens whether confidence is high or low. Work moves forward whether praise is present or absent. Silence is maintained whether ego wants attention or not. This is where masculinity stops being aesthetic and becomes functional. Modern psychology calls it delayed gratification. Stoicism calls it temperance. Machiavellianism calls it leverage. Because when you can deny yourself short-term comfort, you become immune to manipulation. Threats lose power. Temptation loses pull. Pressure loses urgency. A man who governs himself cannot be governed easily by others. Watch how institutions condition weakness through indulgence, excess comfort, endless stimulation, immediate reward. All of it erodes attention and resolve. The warrior opts out. He limits inputs. He controls routines. He guards sleep, nutrition, focus, and solitude like strategic assets, not self-care trends. His body is not an accessory. His mind is not a playground. They are instruments. Self-command also means you say less and mean more. Promises are rare. Boundaries are silent. When you commit, you follow through. When you decline, you don't explain. This consistency trains people around you unconsciously. They learn that your words have weight, that you are not flexible under pressure, that pushing harder won't move you, it will only reveal them. There is a quiet intimidation in reliability. Most men betray themselves in private long before they are ever disrespected publicly. They skip discipline when no one is watching. They compromise standards in isolation. Then they wonder why confidence evaporates in confrontation. Confidence is earned through self-respect, and self-respect is built when you keep promises to yourself without witnesses. The warrior knows this. That's why he treats unseen moments as decisive. What you do when tired, when bored, when unmotivated, when no reward is immediate. Those moments don't feel powerful, but they are the source of it. This is also where ego is dismantled. Ego wants intensity. Ego wants recognition. Ego wants progress to feel dramatic. Discipline wants none of that. Discipline prefers boring excellence, repeatable systems, quiet accumulation. The warrior abandons the need to feel powerful and focuses on becoming effective. Power follows. Another hard truth. Self-command requires losing access to people and environments that undermine it. Not through confrontation, but through distance. Certain conversations drain focus. Certain relationships pull you backward. Certain habits soften your edge. The warrior doesn't moralize this. He subtracts, relentlessly, elegantly. Power grows through subtraction as much as accumulation. This is why your circle narrows as discipline sharpens, not because you become antisocial, but because fewer people can operate at your frequency without friction. You don't explain this. You don't defend it. You let silence do the pruning. Self-command also recalibrates time perception. You stop asking how long things will take. You start asking if they're inevitable. Under consistent execution, the impatient man rushes because he fears delay. The disciplined man relaxes because he trusts process. That trust creates calm. Calm increases clarity. Clarity improves decisions. Pay attention here. This is how pressure stops working on you. When you trust your systems, external urgency loses force. You aren't reactive because your internal structure is stable. That stability is rare, and rarity commands respect. The warrior treats his schedule like a battlefield map. Not everything deserves engagement. Not every opportunity is beneficial. You learn to say no quickly and yes slowly. You understand that energy is finite, and wasted energy is weakness. So you structure days, weeks, months with intention. Repetition becomes identity. Identity becomes reputation. This is how inner dominance turns into outer influence, without theatrics. Self-command does not mean rigidity. It means adaptability without compromise. You adjust tactics, not principles. You bend strategy, not standards. When circumstances change, you evolve, but never abandon core discipline. That is why chaos breaks others and sharpens you. Most men want freedom without structure. That fantasy creates slaves to impulse. The warrior adopts structure to earn freedom. Freedom of choice, freedom of movement, freedom from internal sabotage. And here's the silent reward of self-command. Your mind becomes quiet. Not empty, but ordered. Obsessions fade. Anxiety loses grip. Because anxiety feeds on inconsistency. Discipline starves it. This is why the most disciplined men sleep better, even under pressure. Their minds trust them. You don't rise to occasions. You don't rely on bursts of motivation. You do not negotiate with resistance. You move because it is time to move. That is self-command, and a man who commands himself does not need to dominate others. By the time others notice your authority, it's already been established internally long ago. Number 6. Positioning above conflict. Most men waste their power fighting battles they never needed to enter. They confuse engagement with strength, reaction with dominance, visibility with control. Machiavelli saw this pattern clearly. The ruler who is constantly defending himself is already losing status. The warrior mindset understands something colder and more efficient. Power is not proven in conflict. It is preserved by positioning above it. If you are always explaining yourself, you are already beneath the frame. If you are always defending your choices, you've surrendered leverage. If you are constantly responding to attacks, provocations, and opinions, you are being placed, not placing yourself. The warrior does not live inside other people's emotional storms. He observes them from altitude. Positioning begins with one ruthless awareness. Not every challenge deserves recognition. Engagement grants importance. Response legitimizes. Silence, when backed by certainty, invalidates. Most men argue to prove they are right. The warrior doesn't need to prove. He moves on and lets outcomes expose truth. This is psychological hierarchy in practice. When you are high status internally, you don't rush to correct misunderstandings. You let patterns speak. You let time sort narratives. You understand that clarity often arrives without you saying a word, if your actions are aligned. Low-status minds argue. High-status minds allow reality to answer for them. Consider how power actually operates in social structures. Leaders are not the loudest voices. They are the reference points. Decisions orbit them. Reactions flow from them. When they withdraw attention, the system destabilizes. When they re-engage, things recalibrate. This isn't charisma, it's positioning. Positioning above conflict requires restraint of ego. Ego wants to be seen winning. Power wants to keep options open. You stop treating every disagreement like a threat. You stop mistaking disrespect for danger. You understand the difference between noise and rupture. Noise can be ignored. Rupture demands action. Knowing which is maturity. Here's a rule most men never learn. If someone is trying to pull you into emotional chaos, it's because they cannot reach you strategically. Provocation is the weapon of the powerless. The warrior never fights where the enemy is strongest emotionally. He shifts the terrain. Sometimes dominance looks like disengagement. Sometimes strength looks like disinterest. Sometimes victory looks like walking away without announcement. Conflict feeds on attention. Remove attention and it collapses. This doesn't mean you become passive. It means when you move deliberately. When boundaries are crossed strategically, not emotionally, you respond with consequence, not reaction. Consequence is clean. It doesn't explain itself. It doesn't argue. It simply changes access, positioning, or outcome. This is where fear-based respect dies and authority takes its place. Most people are addicted to psychological drama. They seek friction because it gives them identity. The warrior is not entertained by this. He is outcome-oriented. He invests where returns compound. Everywhere else he maintains altitude. Altitude changes everything. From above, emotions shrink. Narratives distort. Urgency fades. You see patterns instead of incidents. And once you see patterns, you cannot be gaslit. You cannot be baited. You cannot be rushed into playing roles that do not serve you. This is why calm detachment unnerves aggressive personalities. They rely on escalation. They want reactions. When they meet neutrality backed by boundaries, their leverage evaporates. They either expose insecurity or retreat. Positioning above conflict also protects your energy. Energy wasted in unnecessary battles is energy stolen from growth. The warrior is selective. He understands that attention is capital, and like any intelligent operator, he invests capital only where returns justify risk. Notice how powerful figures rarely argue online, rarely explain themselves in public, rarely chase perception. They've learned that explanation dilutes authority. Silence backed by consistency compounds it. The same applies to your personal life. You stop narrating your moves. You stop defending your standards. You stop negotiating your principles with people who don't share the cost of upholding them. You let your absence remove access. You let your presence signal alignment. Over time, this trains others how to approach you, carefully, respectfully, intentionally. Positioning also means understanding when not to win. Sometimes allowing someone to believe they've won gives you strategic clarity. It reveals their intentions, their limits, their next move. Machiavelli advised restraint not as mercy, but as intelligence. Visibility can be delayed. Advantage cannot. You don't need to correct every lie spoken about you. Lies collapse under their own weight when you don't fuel them with reaction. Truth doesn't need panic. It needs time and consistency. Only insecure men rush to fix narratives. This mindset reshapes how you deal with competition. You don't compare, you don't posture, you don't rush to signal superiority. You focus on positioning where comparison becomes irrelevant. When you occupy a different tier, rivalry dissolves naturally. Another hard truth: many conflicts exist only because both parties are equal in insecurity. Raise your internal status, and the conflict loses symmetry. What remains is noise, and noise does not require response. At this stage, your life becomes quieter, not because nothing happens, but because fewer things qualify as important. Priority replaces chaos. Structure replaces drama. Strategy replaces emotion. You are no longer inside every conversation. You are above them. And from there, control becomes subtle, almost effortless. You don't force alignment. You create an environment where alignment is the only rational move for others. This is the last illusion to shed. Dominance is not about confrontation. It's about placement. Place yourself correctly, and almost nothing can touch you. When men below fight, shout, and scramble, you stay still. When pressure rises, you widen distance. When noise increases, you reduce engagement. That is how you stay clean while others burn. This is not avoidance. This is mastery. Number 7. Influence without exposure. The highest level of power is not force, it's influence that operates quietly, without fingerprints. When people think power always looks like dominance, they expose how little they understand it. Machiavelli warned that visibility can be a liability because what is seen can be attacked. The warrior evolves past the need to be recognized as powerful and instead builds outcomes that move in his favor, regardless of who gets the credit. This is where amateurs lose interest. There is no applause here, no dramatic confrontation, no visible victory, only results. Influence without exposure begins with understanding how humans actually move. Most people believe they are independent thinkers. They are not. They respond to incentives, fear loss more than they seek gain, and follow perceived authority unconsciously. The warrior never argues with people's beliefs. He shapes the environment that creates them. You don't convince, you position. When circumstances change, beliefs follow. When incentives shift, behavior aligns. This is why arguing is inefficient and influence is silent. Instead of confronting resistance directly, you remove oxygen from it. You change rules quietly. You adjust access. You let people make decisions they believe are theirs, while you already accounted for the outcome. Real influence doesn't pressure. It nudges. The warrior studies patterns relentlessly. He listens more than he speaks. He maps motivations. He understands what people fear losing, not what they claim to want. Desire is negotiable. Fear is not. This isn't cruelty, it's realism. People will betray ideals to avoid discomfort long before they'll endure pain for abstract values. That insight changes everything. You stop expecting consistency between what people say and what they do. You stop being shocked by reversals. Instead, you anticipate behavior based on incentives and pressure. This removes emotional disappointment, replaces it with clarity. From here, your communication changes form. You don't overshare. You don't persuade emotionally. You ask precise questions. You let silence pull information out of others. People reveal themselves when they feel heard. The warrior is a patient listener, not because he cares about every opinion, but because he understands that information is leverage. Influence grows from asymmetry of information. Those who speak the most usually know the least about the situation. Those who speak the least often know who controls it. This is why powerful men are rarely verbose. Words are not released unless they shift the board. You also learn to let others be the messenger. Psychological ideas are resisted when they feel imposed. They are accepted when discovered. So instead of declaring truth, you create conditions where others arrive there on their own. This builds alignment without confrontation and loyalty without coercion. The warrior never forces loyalty. He makes loyalty rational. This requires discipline of ego. You must let go of the need to be seen as the source. You allow others to think it was their idea. You let subordinates feel ownership. You let rivals underestimate you. All of this creates freedom of movement. Exposure invites resistance. Obscurity invites opportunity. Influence without exposure also protects you from retaliation. When outcomes shift without clear attribution, blame disperses, pressure diffuses, while others scramble to assign fault, you remain untouched. Machiavelli understood this deeply. The wise ruler ensures that unpopular actions appear necessary, inevitable, or distant. You adopt the same restraint internally. You do not celebrate openly. You do not gloat. Victory makes noise only when insecurity is present. Quiet success signals confidence. This stage transforms how you think about leadership. You stop trying to motivate emotionally. You structure incentives. You adjust consequences. You design systems that guide behavior naturally, even when you're absent. When things work without your presence, you are operating at a higher tier. Another shift happens here. You stop correcting people publicly. Correction creates enemies. You redirect privately, or not at all. Public correction feeds ego battles. Silent redirection builds compliance without bruising pride. Remember, people protect their image before they protect truth. Influence respects that. It works around ego instead of confronting it. That's why charismatic manipulators outlast aggressive ones. Hard power breaks, soft power bends and preserves. This is also where patience becomes tactical. You delay moves deliberately. You let others act first. Initiative is revealing. Whoever moves first shows priorities. The warrior waits until information asymmetry favors him. Then movement is minimal and decisive. You don't threaten. You don't warn prematurely. Warnings teach people how to resist you. Silence forces them to guess, and guessing exposes. The more you understand influence, the less dramatic your life becomes. Chaos evaporates. Power struggles dissolve. Most people don't even realize they are being influenced. They simply feel that moving with you is easier than moving against you. That is the ideal state. You are not chasing dominance. You are designing reality. Influence without exposure also demands ethical clarity. Your ethics, not public performance. Because when no one is watching, only your internal code restrains you. This is where corrupt men collapse. They become unstable, reckless, predictable. The warrior maintains restraint, not because of fear, but because excess creates instability. Stability preserves power. As this consolidates, your identity fades into function. You become less interesting socially, but more effective strategically. People stop gossiping about you and start adjusting around you. They don't know why, they just feel the pressure to align. This is the paradox. When you stop needing to look powerful, you become difficult to oppose. Influence without exposure is the highest refinement of Machiavellian strategy merged with stoic control. You don't dominate rooms. You shape outcomes long before anyone steps into them. And when people finally notice the shift, it's already too late to interfere. This is where talk ends. Movement begins. Number 8. Power that outlives you. Most men never think beyond the next reaction, the next reward, the next win. That's why their power fades the moment attention shifts. Machiavelli understood something brutally simple. Power that doesn't outlive the individual is fragile. The warrior mindset evolves past dominance, past influence, into something colder and more permanent: endurance. This is where legacy begins, not as reputation, but as structure. Legacy is not about being remembered, It's about being felt after you're gone. Men obsessed with recognition build monuments to ego. Men obsessed with permanence build systems. Systems don't require your presence. They don't beg for validation. They continue operating whether you are applauded, criticized, or absent entirely. This is the final separation between performers and architects. You stop asking, "How do I win this?" You start asking, "What survives me?" This shift changes how you move. You become less reactive to temporary victories and less shaken by short-term losses. Why? Because endurance requires patience. It requires sacrificing immediacy for inevitability. Weak men chase highs. Powerful men design trajectories. Every decision now passes through a more ruthless filter. Does this strengthen my position over time, or does it only satisfy me now? Does this increase my leverage 6 months from now, 5 years from now, 10? If it doesn't compound, it's noise. And noise is the enemy of longevity. This is where discipline, detachment, positioning, and influence converge into something cohesive. You stop improvising your life. You begin engineering it. You invest in assets, not appearances. Skills that stack. Relationships that align with trajectory, not comfort. Knowledge that sharpens judgment, not ego. You stop associating with chaos. Even if chaos is entertaining, chaos erodes structures. Stability builds them. Power that lasts is boring to watch and brutal to challenge. Most people want to feel powerful today, even if it costs them tomorrow. The warrior is willing to feel underestimated now if it secures dominance later. That restraint is rare and terrifying to those who don't possess it, because they sense something is forming that doesn't need their participation or permission. Legacy also rewrites how you treat conflict and reward. You no longer scorch the earth emotionally. Burned ground yields nothing. You preserve optionality. You avoid creating enemies unnecessarily, not out of kindness, but because wasted resistance drains time and focus. The goal is not to conquer everyone. The goal is to build something that makes resistance irrelevant. Machiavelli wrote that lasting rulers shape institutions so strong that even bad successors can't immediately destroy them. Translate that inward. Build internal systems so solid that even bad days don't derail you. Build external systems so resilient that even absence doesn't weaken your influence. This includes your reputation. You stop swinging between extremes. You become consistent, predictably calm, predictably measured. People stop testing you, not because you intimidate, but because your reactions are not exploitable. Stability becomes your signature. Legacy-minded men also understand this. Secrecy protects growth. Premature exposure invites interference. You don't announce vision while it's fragile. You shield it until momentum makes it undeniable. Then, even detractors are forced to adjust. Another harsh truth: not everyone can come with you. Legacy requires pruning. Some people benefit only from your present, not your future. Attachment to them slows evolution. This is where stoic resolve is tested. You don't dramatize separation. You don't justify it. You simply keep moving. Those meant to endure will adapt to your pace. Those who don't fall away. This isn't cruelty, it's selection. As legacy thinking locks in, fear changes shape. You're no longer afraid of being disliked, you're wary of being diluted. You protect clarity above comfort, direction above belonging, purpose above approval. That internal alignment creates a gravity no external praise can match. You also stop measuring success emotionally. Feelings fluctuate, structures remain. You examine systems. Is your environment pushing you forward or pulling you back? Are your habits reinforcing authority or eroding it? Are you creating dependence or autonomy? Everything unnecessary is stripped. Here's the quietest truth of all. Men who build legacy don't rush because they've already won internally. They are no longer trying to prove worth through speed or spectacle. They allow time to become an ally, and time is merciless to those without structure, but generous to those with it. When your life becomes structured enough, pressure stops threatening you. It becomes irrelevant. Crises come and go, but your direction remains fixed. That's when people start using words like inevitable without knowing why. That's legacy at work. You are no longer playing for applause. You are no longer reacting to emotion. You are no longer fighting for position. You are building something permanent. This is the level where confidence is no longer felt. It is assumed, not because you walk louder, but because nothing in you feels accidental. Every move makes sense in hindsight. And that consistency writes a reputation stronger than any claim. Power that endures doesn't announce itself. It accumulates silently, and when noticed, it's already established. This is the threshold. One final refinement remains. Number 9, the untouchable state. This is where everything converges. Discipline, detachment, perception, emotional command, positioning, influence, legacy. Not as theories, but as a single internal posture. The untouchable state is not aggression. It is not arrogance. It is not intimidation. It is the quiet confidence of a man who knows he cannot be rushed, baited, controlled, or destabilized. Untouchable does not mean nothing affects you. It means nothing owns you. At this level, you stop identifying with fluctuations. Praise doesn't inflate you. Criticism doesn't collapse you. Success doesn't intoxicate you. Failure doesn't define you. You experience outcomes fully, then let them pass without rewriting your identity. This is where stoicism hardens into immunity. Most men live inside emotional weather. A good day lifts them, a bad one breaks them. The warrior becomes climate-proof, internally stable, regardless of external temperature. And that stability is read instantly by others. They may not be able to articulate it, but they feel it. You are not reactive prey. You are not movable terrain. This is the moment psychology stops being something you use and becomes something you embody. You walk slower, not because you're unsure, but because there is no urgency in you. Your nervous system no longer broadcasts hunger. You speak less, not out of fear, but because nothing needs selling. Your presence becomes weighted, subtle, grounded. People lean in without realizing why. Here's the paradox. The less you try to control people, the more control you have over situations. Because untouchable men are not predictable. Not because they're chaotic, but because they are anchored internally instead of externally. You have removed the levers others pull. Approval doesn't move you. Threats don't rush you. Silence doesn't provoke you. Emotional scarcity doesn't manipulate you. Ask yourself, honestly, how many of your past decisions were shaped by fear of loss, rejection, or appearing weak? The untouchable man exits that framework entirely. He no longer negotiates with those fears. He acknowledges them, logs the data, and proceeds anyway. This is cold power psychology at its purest, mastery without force. At this point, you stop mistaking visibility for importance. You understand that the loudest people are compensating. The busiest are often avoiding stillness. The most opinionated are the least certain. You don't need to outshine them. You let contrast do the work. Still water next to chaos always looks deep. Your internal dialogue changes too. Less self-judgment, less justification, less mental noise. You stop replaying conversations. Stop rehearsing arguments that may never happen. Stop agonizing over perception. Rumination vanishes when self-command is complete. This is where anxiety dies, not because life becomes easy, but because your system trusts you. And when the mind trusts the man living inside it, pressure loses teeth. Understand this clearly. Untouchable men are not emotionless. They are selective. They choose where emotion belongs, who earns access, what deserves energy. This selectivity is what creates authority. Authority over yourself first. Everything else follows naturally. You no longer seek dominance. You no longer fear submission. You simply are. This state also permanently changes how manipulation works on you. Gaslighting fails because you trust your pattern recognition. Love bombing fails because you're not starved for validation. Fear tactics fail because you've already accepted loss as a possibility. Control requires hooks, and you've removed them. Ask yourself, What leverage do people actually have over me anymore? Very little, if you've done this work properly. Now, here's the final refinement most people miss. The untouchable man is not cynical. He is clear. He doesn't expect betrayal, but he's never surprised by it. He doesn't distrust everyone, but he verifies quietly. His optimism is grounded, not naive. That balance makes him impossible to blindside. This is Machiavelli tempered by stoicism. Realism without bitterness, control without cruelty. At this level, even conflict changes shape. When confrontation is unavoidable, you're calm, precise, short. You don't unload emotion. You set consequence, cleanly, and you walk. No drama, no victory lap, just finality. This is why people remember interactions with you long after. They felt the certainty. Certainty is the rarest energy in a world addicted to doubt. Now pause here, because this matters. If you're still listening, it means something in you recognizes this state, not as fantasy, but as alignment.